Hello, everybody. This is Joshua Hatton with One Nation Under Whiskey. I am joined today, and as always, by my good friend and business partner, the coffee, the wheezy, the emphysemismatic, Jason Neal, Patrick Harris, Johnston Yellen. How you doing over there? How are your lungs today, Jason?
'Tis allergy season in Virginia. Yeah. So I have spent the last probably 4 days, just runny nose, coughing, eyes streaming. And then on top of that, the night before we're making this recording, I was at Guy's Night Out in Potomac, Maryland. 450 guys in a synagogue. And you can imagine I was shouting at the top of my lungs to be heard. But I have to say the Kosher for Passover rum was incredibly well received. Incredibly so. And so really happy about that. And then poured a few other fun things. Backwoods, Australian Heritage Rye, very well received. Tullabarden, very well received. And somebody came back to me at the end of the show and said the belle of the ball was our Glengarry 21-year-old single cask online version. So
there you go.
There you go. That is my introduction to myself and why I sound like I sound. I will not keep the spotlight from Jessica Rabbit Caramel Lomas any longer.
There you go. Well, I'm glad you're introducing Jess. Jess, why don't you introduce yourself and the road tripping that you're coming off of?
Oh, I have done lots of exciting road tripping. After we had our Edinburgh adventure together, the three of us, and then the three of us, but with a substitute for Jason in the form of Chris. I then had a quick little brief visit back to my flat to check it was still there. Changed my suitcases around, get some clean pants, put everything back in a suitcase, and I immediately got on a plane and went to Finland for the weekend, where I went to go stay with our friends and my former desk buddy Andreas, and we went to visit with a big gang of us. We went to RØDE Distillery, which I often bang about on here, was my favourite Finnish rye distillery, where we spent the weekend. We had an amazing tour, fantastic food. There was a hot tub, there was a sauna, obviously, which is a legal requirement in Finland. And the absolute highlight and magic for me was the Northern Lights were out when we were all sat in the hot tub, which was just so good. So if anyone saw my social media, I posted like a bajillion photos of the Northern Lights and would be very happy to bore you again with them should you require to see 1,000 photographs of the Northern Lights in Northern Finland. I am your gal. I can fix that for you.
What's your handle on Instagram, Jess?
Whiskey Jess. I thought really long and hard about that.
Whiskey Jess. No E, I assume, in whiskey, but an E in Jess.
Obviously not. Yes. Only one E in the entire handle. See what you did there. And then I came home, emptied the old suitcase out again, threw everything in the washing machine, and I too was hosting a tasting in a synagogue, which is my first tasting in a synagogue, here in Giffnock in Glasgow, where I poured a bunch of things for 30 very excited guests. And we had a little sneak preview of some of the things I had at Leith. So the forthcoming global release, I had a couple of bottles from that, a couple of old favourites, things that I knew would go down well. So yeah, we had a nice evening, 6 whiskies. And then the cherry on the cake at the end of it was, I thought I was going to have to come home with a lot of glasses to wash up, and I was going to be very unpopular in my house because I famously don't do the washing up. Every time I've told this story so far, somebody's chipped in and said, well, it would have been me doing the washing up. We'll leave him nameless for now. And the rabbi himself washed all 180 of my glasses by hand, like an absolute champ. So
that's fantastic. Very quickly, you glossed over it, Whiskey Jess. What were the 2 preview pours from the upcoming global release?
Actually, it was 3 preview pours. We had the Benriach, the Williamson, and the Tormore.
Benriach, Williamson, Tormore. Oh, speaking of those 3, gosh, brings us beautifully around to today's episode.
Indeed. See what I did there? Semi-deliberate.
Pro move, Jess.
Well done. Wow, but you don't give me a chance to talk about my travels. That's fine. That's fine. That's cool. I don't get to talk about the fact that I'm the one Jewish person in the group that didn't pour for a bunch of Jews.
Yeah, super awkward. We were letting you get away with the fact that as the Jewish person of us, you were not in a synagogue pouring whiskey. We didn't want to bring shame on you.
Yeah, well, why don't we put a pin in that and you tell us about your travels after we go through today's episode?
There you go. Yeah. So today's episode highlights the Independent Spirits Festival, where the three of us just post the Independent Spirits series. We're pouring at the festival that highlighted. I think we said it was somewhere around 30-ish tables, where there were 30-ish independent bottlers highlighting their wares. And the first hour or so, it was the three of us behind or in front of the table pouring a number of our bottlings. And then I needed to get out of there and in front of people to record, but we were so slammed. I simply couldn't do it. But thankfully, Christopher Swede-Scott Hallstrom was around and willing to... Right, the washer of glasses. He was not to be named. Shit.
It's okay. Everyone knows.
But he was so kind. I said, Chris, could you please just fill in for me here while I go around and interview some people, and he was kind enough to do so. So, what the listeners are about to hear now is me going around talking to a number of people. I really wanted to get a wide swath of what was going on here. So we'll hear from punters, that is for the Americans out there, that is the attendees. We'll also hear from David Stirk, who put on the event, Guy Satchwell, one of the directors of the series, and longtime Padcast listeners, independent bottlers. And, Jason, there was a question that you had that you'd been curious about. What had people learned having watched the series? And I thought that was a great question to be asking. So is one I threw out to my interviewees. And so there you go. That's my setup.
I'm ready to hear the answers to this pertinent, pressing question.
I'm here now with the legendary Dr. Matt Bishop, longtime Padcast listener. Absolutely lovely to have you on the Padcast. I want to talk with you about the Independent Spirits series. You watched all 4 episodes?
Yes. Yeah.
So I'm just curious, as someone who's obviously a fan of independent bottlings, I want to know 2 things. A, was there something in the series that sort of surprised you? Was there something about independent bottling that was new to you?
I think the interaction between the independent bottling companies, I think that was probably the biggest thing that surprised me, was how that relationship worked. I assumed that they were more competitive.
Yeah.
And therefore working more independently of each other.
Yeah.
But actually it is more of a relationship now.
Okay.
In a similar way to, I guess, the distilleries working together.
Yes.
Sharing casks.
Yeah. There's a symbiosis there.
Yeah. And with independent bottlers having a lot of casks in storage, they're now becoming big enough to be able to share that. To share their casks with other independent bottlers.
Yeah, that was something that Jason and I learned early on, where we were buying from distilleries, and then an independent bottler said, "Oh, I'll sell you casks," and it was our good friend David Stirk who's running this event, and he had exclusive malts at the time, and that was so surprising because you would say, "Well, he's our competitor." In the end, we're not competing at all.
Yeah, it was nice to hear from people like Cara Lang.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
Just in a very positive way, saying how they're working as part of a big group to promote the sales of whiskey wherever it is and whoever it's by. It's not a closed shop. They're making sure that people know what they have, because they've been around for such a long time, and they have a huge resource of casks that they're willing to be open about what they have and share that with people that might want a particular cask from a particular distillery to bottle that in amongst the range that a smaller independent producer needs. So it was nice to hear. It was nice to see her. She has such a positive.
She does.
vibe.
Yeah, she was so great on it.
Yeah. And it was nice to hear from First Field Spirits.
Okay. Yeah.
That was nice to see Holly.
Yeah, Holly Sidewand. Yeah.
Yeah. Again, coming across I think the whole field of Scotch whiskey and bottling and selling is going through a difficult time because of the T word, and also because the cost of living and the pressure on people to sell and the pressure on people to buy. Yeah. I think it came across to me from watching all four episodes was how positive people were still.
Yes. Yeah.
Because you could get very depressed.
Oh, easily.
Yeah.
Easily. I mean, like if we put the T word to the side, which I assume is twat. I think it might be twat, I could be wrong. But if we put the T word to the side, I think the more industry people I talk with, we feel as if this downturn that it's like a downturn with a small d, that it's a blip, because here we are in an absolutely packed room. It's clear, whether it's this show or any other show, or if I'm doing a seminar, it's always a packed room. The interest hasn't gone away. People just need to drink through all the things they bought over COVID or pay off their credit cards. And so these are the, we see the light at the end of the tunnel, and we're headed in that direction, and just hoping that global economic conditions don't get in the way of that light, don't dim that light.
Yeah. Oh yeah, there are lots of people here. I'm not sure how many. Is it 400 or 500 people that are here?
Yeah, I think it's about 500. Yeah.
And everyone is excited.
Yeah.
And there are new independent bottlers here that I haven't seen before.
So that was going to be my other question: was, did you learn about independent bottlers that you in this show that were just simply new to you? Any intriguing?
Yes, there's a couple that I have never come across before.
Okay.
And I've been to a few, large, like the Glasgow Whisky Festival, and I've never met them before. Actually, they're based down in England, but they bottle up here in Scotland, and they have some fantastic whiskies on their table. So
who is it?
Bartels.
Okay. Yeah. Yep.
And to name one of their bottles, they have a lovely cask strength 14-year-old Balblair.
There you go. You don't find a lot of independently bottled Balblair.
No.
Okay.
And that's one of my go-to distilleries.
Yeah, okay.
So that was really good. But I think I went recently last year to the Edinburgh Whisky Festival at Murrayfield.
Yeah.
And it was noticeable then that the independent bottlers are in by far the majority compared to the traditional distillery tables. Yeah, it's a feeling that I've got that they are taking over, because you don't get Diageo don't come to the trade fairs.
Okay.
And so the window to the customer is independent bottlers.
Yes.
Which is great. I mean, I don't know if you've been to Living Souls.
Yeah.
I think their bottlings are beautiful to look at, and they have some great liquid in their bottles. A lovely liquid they have.
Okay.
It's tremendous.
Okay. What's the details on that liquid? Do you know off the top of your head?
Not off of my head, no. Sorry.
I'm looking for drams to put in my glass, so.
Yes. Well, there's a nice 31-year-old Springbank that you can sample.
Manischewitz. Okay.
It's only £1,200 to buy. So
right.
Our £5 voucher won't go a long way on that one. But Alistair Walker has some fantastic. Their Infrequent Flyers brand is always tremendous.
Yes, agreed. Yep.
They have a lovely Deanston. I'm a big fan of Deanston. They have a lovely Deanston there.
Okay.
So yeah.
Okay.
It's been looking good so far.
Deanston plus Ali Walker. That's an excellent combination. Beauty.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Matt.
It's been a pleasure as always, and it's great to be on the podcast. Thank you very much indeed.
Cheers.
Occupation.
Gladiator.
Did you kill last week?
No.
Did you try to kill last week?
Yeah.
Now listen, this is your last week of unemployment insurance. Either you kill somebody next week or we're going to have to change your status. You got it?
Yeah.
Sign.
Next. So I'm here with the lovely, the inimitable David Stern. Lovely to be with you.
It's lovely to be with you. It has been too long.
Really
The loveliness has faded. We need lovely to return.
We need lovely to return.
We do. The world needs lovely.
I was just talking with longtime listener of the podcast, this gentleman, Dr. Matt Bishop, and I had asked him, one of the things, what were some of the things that surprised him about this series, this Independent Spirit series? And one of the things he said was, I was really surprised to hear that independent bottlers support one another, that they will actually sell to one another. And part of the Single Cask Nation origin story is the fact that we wouldn't have had a company if you didn't sell us casks of whiskey. And so,
If I could turn back time.
oh my God, listeners, he's actually wearing the costume right now.
I've got the full ribbon. I'm straddling the gunship as we talk. Yeah, isn't it lovely? Isn't it?
It's fantastic.
And yet we're in this room of 43 companies who all pretty much appreciate what each other does.
Yeah.
And there's a little bit of envy and there's a little bit of desire, but there's also appreciation and love and affection and symbiosis. And if you don't do well, we don't do well.
Yeah.
So when I met you guys back when the world was still green, it wasn't a case of, you could affect my business. It was a case of, I love what you guys do. I love you guys. And the whiskey goes round faster if there's more love attached to it. And that's part of the reason why we did the festival, is because there is that, in a way the distillers don't have. The independent bottlers do have this feeling of we're all in it together.
Yeah.
We use the same importers, distributors, retailers, channels, customers. Hello, Jen.
Right.
It's it's all.
What the hell's that? I'm recording an interview right now.
No, it's fine. It's all right. It's all good. Obviously, there's the odd one, but no, it's amazing. Isn't it amazing? Yeah. And what other industry does that?
Exactly. It makes no sense that the industry should work like this.
None at all.
But it can't work without that.
No.
Which is wild. So this is your festival, the Independent Spirits Festival. Is this something that you had dreamed of doing? Is this something you even ever thought of doing?
No, I never thought of it.
Yeah.
This, I have to give. It's a bit like you guys when you came on the scene. It takes sometimes an outside perspective to change what's going on. And it took an American, Greg Swartz, to come along and say, why don't you guys have a festival? And everybody's going, oh yeah, hey Scooby-Doo, that's a really good idea. And then Guy, who's the director of the movie, said, we should do that. We should totally do that.
Yeah.
And they took somebody else who then said, Dave, do it.
there.
Do it, Dave. Do it, Dave.
Yeah.
Dave, do it.
Yeah.
Because who knows more independent bottlers than somebody who's worked for half of them and with half of them.
Exactly.
And that's it. And then I called in all the favors, and here we are, surrounded by independent bottlers, all pouring amazing whiskies.
It's absolutely brilliant, and you know we're in this period of time where there seems to be a blip. I wouldn't say uncertainty, but you know there's a bit of a downturn in whiskey as far as sales go, and you know you just need to go on the internet and you see that. But this room is packed. The excitement hasn't gone away at all.
Yeah. We are not at the end of the spectrum that is pushing the boundaries. I think to a certain extent, we're not the guy saying here's £1,000 bottle.
Yeah.
We're the guy saying we might have £150 bottle.
Yeah.
Maybe a £200 bottle.
Yeah.
But for the most part, it's 50 to 150.
Yeah, exactly.
That's, for the consumer, that's a big deal. And also, we're so limited, quality driven, personality driven, family driven, people driven. I look around and I look at friends, punters and exhibitors. It's a different crowd. It's a totally different crowd. So it should be repeated. It can be repeated. It will be repeated.
Beauty. I was going to ask that question if it's going to be repeated.
Well, I don't know if this festival will be, but it will be repeated in some form or another.
Yeah. Well, seriously, you should be tremendously proud.
I am emotional. I am very emotional. Somebody said to me, have you taken drugs? No, I'm literally high on the part of the industry I love.
Yeah.
And that's what it is. You know, it's it is what I love.
Yeah.
There's no distilleries here. That's fine. I love everything in it.
Yeah.
There's too much love.
It's all love. And
all
I love
love.
it.
I love it. I love it. I love it.
Cheers, man. Thank you so much.
Moving right along. Footloose and fancy free.
Getting there is half the fun. Come share it with me.
Moving right along.
We'll learn to share the load.
We don't need a map to keep the show on the road.
All right. I'm here with Bonnie Nolan
Still,
of the Chicago Nolans. And
the infamous Chicago Nolans.
so
What is this?
I'm being recorded.
So my question for you is, in watching this series, was there anything you learned about independent bottlers or the world of independent bottling that you didn't know that surprised you?
I think it's wider than I realized.
Okay.
I think there's more than and being here at this festival, there's many I didn't know.
Okay.
But my husband, of course, was like, oh, we have a bottle of that. We have a bottle of this.
Yeah,
it's like,
exactly.
Well, I didn't know about it. So it was broadening my horizon.
Okay. And was there any independent bottlers that are new to you that you've tried here at this festival that they kind of opened your eyes?
I actually really enjoyed Murray.
Murray McDavid.
Yeah. And what they're doing.
Yeah, they did some fascinating stuff. I love their approach with wine casks and just sort of unusual cask maturations as well.
I had a good time talking to Dean.
Yeah, all right. And you get to meet so many whiskey friends that you've known.
It's so geeky.
And so how many of
I am here for the weekend, all right? I work in a public school, and I got to say on Thursday, I'm going to Edinburgh for the weekend. I'll be back on Tuesday.
Yeah.
What's more fun than that?
Nothing's more fun.
Ben Riek from Single Cask Nation.
Wow, we do love Single Cask
Yes.
Nation. Oh, and he's not here, but I did have to do a little sewing before I left to promote the Single Cask.
Oh yeah, I saw that. Yes.
And also the Isla Swim.
All right. So Bonnie is currently drinking the Single Cask Nation Ben Riek 16-year-old PX Sherry Cask Matured.
Oh, that keeps going. That's a long finish.
That's a good
It's a long one. That's a good one.
Really, really excited for that.
We don't have this one.
That one and the Tormore. I don't know if you had our Tormore yet. Did you try our Tormore?
Oh, hold on. You right there.
No, but it's going to get filled up right now. And my glass.
So
No,
just-
but we have bought all the Glenburgies that there are in Chicago, I think.
Oh, really? Those are the Benny's exclusive
Yeah,
Glenburgie?
yeah.
There you go.
I think we got them all.
Yeah.
I think Michael has bought them. It's in our basement. We have the lifetime supply. Because we bought one, we finished it in 2 weeks. It was phenomenal.
Just to make it clear for our listeners, it's really important for our listeners to know the number one reason we bottle Glenburgie is for Michael Nolan.
We have at least a case because we drank 2 bottles already. So, seriously.
That's brilliant. Thank you both so much for the support you've given us and the friendship that's evolved through this over the past, 15-ish years?
No, by a romance, an
Right,
online
romance.
romance.
Yep.
Online romance.
A
I'm like,
little
no
J-date.
way, you're not doing that. You're not doing that. You're not meeting for lunch.
All right. Well, thank you so much.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Gathered together from the cosmic reaches of the universe, here in this great hall of justice, are the most powerful forces of good ever assembled.
All right. I'm here with the very drunk Guy Satchwell. I'm here with Guy Satchwell, one of the co-directors of the Independent Spirits series. Firstly, I need to thank you. The fact that you guys... Oh, shit. All right. Okay, he's running away. The fact that you guys took the years to focus a series on independent bottlers, a subsect of the whiskey industry that few know about. It's surprising. It's lovely.
Do you know what? It is not surprising. And what makes it not surprising is the people themselves. Once I started doing interviews 4.5, 5 years ago, remember the first couple of interviews were just meant to be for the purposes of fundraising.
Yeah.
The only reason I kept going was because everybody I met was a bloody nice bloke. And I just kept meeting bloody nice blokes and going, oh, hang on, these indie bottlers guys, they're really nice. I'll do another one. Yeah. And I kept phoning Greg and going, right, there's another one coming up. And Greg was still very busy at that point. His bandwidth was taken up with Water of Life.
Yeah.
And he was still selling that, as it were. And he didn't have too much time to think about it. And I would just be phoning out and going, I've done 5, I've done 6. I can't stop myself. Yeah. And it's because the people are interesting and the people are lovely. And as I keep saying, when you're making a film and you haven't got a financer or a commissioner behind you, agenderizing you and pointing you in certain directions to tell a certain story, then when all we're doing is getting guys like you to tell us the story that matters, we're free. And it's just lovely. I mean, independent bottling is all about freedom.
Yes. Yeah. Spot on. Oh, I love that. So let me ask you this. But prior to starting the interviews, what was your understanding of the world of independent bottlers and independent bottling?
Well, I was like so many people. I was like probably, frankly, 95% of the whiskey buying average market. I was a guy who would occasionally buy whiskey. I would have whiskey in the house, but I would go to the supermarket and buy a distillery brand that I recognise, like everybody else, you know. And Arthur Motley makes the point in the film, and I was guilty of that as well. You think, oh, it's just cheap knockoff. And then we started interviewing people, and people were, I mean, because everybody's so generous, and I'd go and interview someone, they'd give me a bottle of whiskey, and I'd go home and go, holy crap, this is fantastic whiskey. Not just fantastic whiskey, but varied. And that's what, by the way, I'm just going to say, this festival today, it's the variation. If you've got someone in your life who says, I don't like whiskey, bring them to an independent bottler fair.
Oh my gosh.
Because the spectrum is absolutely gigantic.
Yep, spot on. So through the process of interviewing bottlers, what was the thing that surprised you the most? That was just absolutely unexpected?
Oh, that's a really, really interesting question. The thing that probably surprised me most, I think probably the thing that surprised me most was how much accident there was. right? In that there was a lot of people, they're bottling on the basis of relationships.
Yeah.
Right? So they have relationships with people, and they're not necessarily going out looking for a specific or a particular whiskey or a particular type of whiskey. They're just developing relationships with people, and as a consequence of that, whiskey kind of falls in their lap.
Yeah.
And they'll go, no, not that one, not that. Oh, yeah, that one.
Yeah.
You know, that one, definitely that one. Yeah. And it ends up in bottles, and who wins? The consumer. Everybody wins, but the consumer, we all win. I would think possibly that's a really good question. What surprised me? Let me come back to that.
Okay. And then finally, because I realized I caught you in the middle of going somewhere. Is there a dram here, a particular whiskey that you said, fuck, that's good?
I've just come from Finn Thompson's.
All right.
Yeah. There's a 50-year-old, is it Inchcow, single grain over there?
Invergordon?
Invergordon, is it? Yeah. I mean, frankly, I could have shot him in the face and run off with it, actually. It was just, it is ethereal, almost ghost-like. It almost like it doesn't come into your body through your mouth, it just evaporates around your head. It's just superb. But it's a 300 quid bottle of whiskey. Yeah. You know, but it's absolutely... But I'm a huge fan of single grains, and this is something I've been banging on about for ages. Yeah. That's another thing that independent bottlers have done, is they wake you up to things like that, like single grain. I didn't know anything about single grain, and then I've got two other mates here tonight, and we're all running around in circles chasing down single grains. I've bought a couple of $100 worth of single grain, you know? Absolutely love it.
It's an entirely new world and affordable. Like 50 years old, and you said, what, 300 pounds?
300, that's out of my league.
15-year-old whiskey?
Yeah,
I mean,
absolutely.
Come on, right?
I mean, it's out of my budget because we're just going... the most I spent today was, I spent 100 quid on a single grain, which is a North British, and it was Uncharted.
Oh, yeah.
Uncharted. That's absolutely glorious. Yeah. It's been really good. But, well, I'm going to ask you, what's been your takeaway spirit of the day?
So I'm driving tomorrow, so I'm not having too much. But David Stirk has been going around, and he poured me a 27-year-old Kleinlich.
Oh wow!
All in sherry, and it was like drinking magic. Yeah, it's one of those ones that stops you in your tracks, and you say, "All right, this is why we drink whiskey."
Yeah. Equally, Roy Duff is running around with a bottle of Swedish single malt. All right, which is really interesting. It's got so little on the nose, and yet once it's on the palate, it's the chewiest, fattest, oiliest. It's like meaty. Absolutely fantastic. Again, where would you get that normally? You don't get that at a normal whiskey festival. Some guy running around with a Swedish single malt. Here you go. That takes a beef and vanishing. You know what I mean? That's superb. Absolutely wonderful. Have you had a good day though?
Say that was one.
Have you had a good day?
Had a brilliant day. So initially, I was not meant to be behind the table. I was meant to be doing what we're doing now, going around, talking with punters, talking with people behind the film and so on. And we were so jam-packed, I couldn't leave the table. Very thankful that Chris Sweetscott over here relieved me. But it's been wonderful, seeing basically everyone here that's friends.
Yeah.
And people coming up to me and saying, I love Single Cask Nation, or I've been listening to the podcast for years, and it's just nice to be in this community. And that's what it feels like. It feels like a community.
It is. And you know what? As a matter of interest, there's a friend of mine who's not really a whiskey person who's here. And she just said to me only about half an hour ago, she said, I've got to get a bottle for my dad.
All right.
For his birthday. And I said, what does he like? And she said, well, actually, I don't really think he's really a whiskey drinker. He's a brandy drinker. And I said, well, I've just come away from the Single Cask Nation stand where I bought a bottle of Westland, which to me tastes like brandy in whiskey form. Yeah. Go and get a bottle of that for him, And that's part of the extraordinary diversity in this room. Absolutely brilliant.
Yeah. Final thing for you. For people who are interested in streaming the Independent Spirits series, Now, I know things may change and you may get some broader distribution, but as of March 2025, April 2025...
Right, at this moment, at this very moment, the only thing to do is to go to the website.
Okay.
You go to the Independent Spirits website and you can... now, I've got to be honest, I don't know whether it's up for buy, rent or buy or rent at the moment. I don't know, that's not my field. But certainly the clue at the moment is the Independent is to go to the website. Now, it will obviously end up on streaming services, but probably not till the end of the summer. We've got some plans to hold it back and just do special online screenings as part of tasting packages between now and then. But at the moment, as of March 2025, the website is the only way at the moment. But, hopefully people will want to do it.
Yeah, well, they should. Watching this series... I tried to, in watching the series, it's really
Out of my way, Jesus. Well, that was Philippe Schreiber.
Philippe Schreiber.
That was Philippe Schreiber. Man's a menace.
And watching the series, it's, I tried to step out of my shoes to just be a whiskey fan, right? And which was kind of difficult. But when I was able to do that, separate myself from someone who happens to be on the screen every once in a while, it was a lovely film to watch.
Oh, I'm glad.
And I thought that the thread of the story was so well told, and it just followed so lovely. Look at the guy right here. It was just such a well told story.
Good. I'm glad you enjoyed it. Yeah. And of course, at the end of the day, your takeaway is: who knew there was an association between whiskey and socks? Mark was the man of the day, wasn't he?
Oh my God. I told him I'm going to carry socks with me.
Yeah.
Everywhere I go, and if I see Mark, I'm going to give him a pair of socks.
I'm going to do that right now.
Cheers, guy.
Cheers, man. Thanks a lot.
Meanwhile, back at the ranch.
I'm here with Arnie Warren at the Independent Spirits Festival, right? The whiskey festival here, which is sort of centered around Independent Spirits series or movie or film or whatever it is. It's been fucking brilliant. My question for you is, in watching that series, was there anything, and this has been sort of a theme, I've been asking people all around the festival, is there anything about independent bottling that surprised you in watching this that you weren't aware of prior to having seen this series?
In all honesty, the biggest surprise for me was the collaborative nature of independent bottlers. And it was highlighted in one of the episodes especially, how much they work together. And it's almost like a little set of friendly clockworks working together with each other. That really surprised me. You would always think traditionally in any type of business, if there are competitors, that everybody wants to stand out. But the acceptance of everybody having a different style, a different approach, a different idea, and helping each other is something I find really quite incredible. And a bit of a reflection also of what my experience with whiskey and the whiskey community is. So, because I'm a big fan of the whiskey community, how friendly and inviting everybody is, seeing that reflected in independent bottling as a whole, I just find incredible. And it's certainly reflected here in this festival.
So first off, I love your answer, because that's been the common comment, that people didn't know that competitors, and I'm going to do air quotes, competitors are actually friends and share and will trade casks and sell casks. So it's really nice to hear that that's resonated with people. And that's something that Jason and I learned early on. We bought from independent bottlers. That's how we made our business successful, it made no sense to us, but we went with it. But another question that I've been asking folks is, we're in a room of whiskey companies that most people have never heard of and will never hear of in their lives, because independent bottling is such a small subsegment of the whiskey industry writ large. What was your entree to independent bottlings? How were you introduced to this segment of the whiskey industry?
Again, through community. I've only been into whiskey for around about a year. And because I live in Scotland, relatively local, and got basically thrown into an incredibly embracing community that shares information, shares knowledge, shares opinion, and also physically shares whiskey. I was put onto independent bottlers really quite quickly, and sounds like a kind of strange start to whiskey, but I think most of the bottles that I actually buy are independent bottlers. Because as soon as you're really getting even a little bit geeky and you're diving into a little bit of research and you soak it all up because it's a big hobby, you find that very often you're drawn to independent bottlers. Even to discover distilleries. So I have discovered quite a lot of distilleries through independent bottlers. And then went on to trying OBs.
Okay.
But like I say, I think I am predominantly into independent bottling.
I love that. Oh, that's so great to hear. Final question for you. Having gone around tasting a number of whiskeys, is there one or two in particular that has jumped out at you and you do not have to call out a single Cask Nation one?
Well, I think what I bought has
there you go.
Has probably kind of answers that question. One thing that I thought I knew before, but it has just I don't know. Today it has proven is that I was always drawn to what whiskey because everything I have tried from them seems to kind of go along with my palate.
Yeah, for sure.
Which is another thing I find quite cool about independent bottlers is that sometimes you can identify, especially in the kind of smaller teams, there's a certain palate that they go by, why they choose certain casks. And I find it quite funny that how everyone that I try from them seems to kind of vibe with me. and that's why it's a kind of little standout for me for sure.
Yeah, I love that. I think if an independent bottler is doing his or her or their job correctly, they're bottling the things that they love, and then the whiskey lovers who share a palate come to them. You and I don't need to share a palate, and that's okay. But if we do, then it's happy days.
I can tell you that I have a bit of a love for Ben Nevis. And what actually kicked that off is the single Cask Nation.
Oh,
really? That I got introduced to by a friend at an event. And ended up taking home, and it sparked it for me. Ben Nevis.
Which Ben Nevis was it?
I think it's an 11-year-old or 12-year-old.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
It was last year. I don't know if it was a release from last year, but.
Oh yes, I know the one you're talking about. Yeah, 11-year-old.
11-year-old.
Yeah, 11-year-old.
So and since then I've went and explored Ben Nevis only in the independent bottlings. I mean, I suppose there's not that much OB going around from them anyways. But there's not many OBs going around for them anyways.
No, there isn't. Yeah, it's one of those distilleries. To your point before, where you said you discover a distillery through an independent bottler. As an independent bottler, we had been bottling Ben Nevis and getting casks at really good prices. And whiskey lovers started catching on and started chasing Ben Nevis whiskeys. And the cost for Ben Nevis casks went up because it became a supply and demand issue. So it's so cool that people are discovering these lesser known distilleries through independent bottlers. Despite that distillery not really having much of their own whiskeys.
100%. There's another one that I'm always surprised about is these little kind of teaspoon Dalrymples.
Oh yeah.
Also, obviously, like something that I only know from independent bottlers, and every single time I'm surprised. And if you were just looking at original bottles, it's not something that you would ever really find. You know, Alpha Bay, fair enough. But what independent bottlers can do with whiskies that you think you might know of, and then they still surprise you and whack you over the head is superb.
Love that. Cheers. Thanks so much.
100%, love it.
Appreciate it.
Yes. No, 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 yes. No, 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 yes. No, no, yes. No, 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 no. this. No, 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 no. Wait a minute.
I'm here right now with Matt Bailey of Scotch Malt Whiskey Society and Tom Mills of
Malta Beer Whiskey Company.
There you go. So here's what I want to ask you too. Well, actually, Tom, you haven't seen this series yet, so I can't ask you this question. So I'm going to come back to you because I do have a question for you. Having watched the Independent Spirits series, was there anything about the story that sort of surprised you? The story of independent bottling that, despite your time within the industry, within independent bottling, you said, shit, I didn't know that, or...
So far, I don't think anything really stood out for me as surprising, like I didn't know it, but I think there was, what I did learn a lot from it still, like the one thing which always stands out for me is just how collegiate the trade is and how everyone wants to help each other out. There's a remark, I think, in episode 1 or episode 2 about how, I can't remember which bottler it was, but they went to Alex Bruce over at Adelphi to get help on how to do bottling. And Alex was like, okay, stay with me for 2 days and let's learn it all. And everyone's just so helpful, and we try to do the same at SMWS, and we're always trying to help out those within the trade quite a bit already, which we already know about. But like that for me wasn't what I didn't know, but what I was always just, I guess, nice to hear.
Yeah, for sure. And so, Tom, with you as a broker, right? You sell to independent bottlers. Am I correct in that?
We do supply independent bottlers and other facets of industry. Yeah.
So what are you finding having started that, working with independent bottlers?
So I guess first and foremost, I started the company out as a very boutique independent bottler, like 13 years ago, I think this summer now. And I guess that was kind of just before the tipping point of independent bottling really sort of taking off and in the state we find it now. So I've always had like a good understanding of how to build a brand and supply spirit. And I always say there is no other industry like the Scotch whisky industry where I can walk into a room and people aren't viewed as competitors, they're viewed as friends, and genuinely meaning that. Those relationships aren't fast-tracked in any way, they've taken years to build, and it's exactly as Matt was saying, that you can knock on the door and say, look, we need some help, and I would certainly offer help to anyone who needed it. I can't compare it to any other industry that I've ever operated in.
One of the things that I loved as well is that whole it can't be understated enough how important the role of independent bottlers have been in shaping single malt today. Like there's so many single malts in this very room that we're in right now that we wouldn't see as single malt if they weren't pioneered by independent bottlers. And that, for me, like the distilleries owe, as it said in the doco, not a huge debt, but a small debt of gratitude towards that effort of getting there. Of saying, you know what, there's all these distilleries out there that there's no single malt brand of. I'm always reminded of SMW, I'm going to talk SMWS for a second, 61.1. It's one of my favourite stories because Angus McRail wrote about this for one of our blogs at one point, about how that was the first time Brora had been bottled, not just by SMWS, but as a single malt by anyone. So that's the first Brora single malt ever bottled. And before that, it was all going into blends and it was all going to blenders. That's great. But it was just that foresight from Pip Hills of saying, let's bottle these distilleries as single malts.
That example is perfect. I think about Port Ellen and Brora both reopening. No one gave a shit about these distilleries. If they even knew them, they were shuttered in the 80s, and it was just because of independent bottlers.
And if they hadn't touched it, they wouldn't be reopening today. Good chance they wouldn't be.
It's absolutely wild that, years ago, independent bottlers helped kick off single malt. And then revive distilleries. Like, in a strange way, independent bottlers remain the backbone of the industry. And no one knows it.
It's probably a point to make that's an important one, I'd say, is that independent bottlers sometimes can be, favoured by the upper echelons of industry. That's not always the case, though. And, it's hard because obviously the bigger the distiller, the bigger the entity, the more IP protection they have to exert. And, they face an understandable challenge. How do they protect, this 230-year-old distillery's legacy that they've preserved without relinquishing stocks into the open market? And, all sorts of malpractice can happen, misappropriation of liquid. They face a real challenge. But for those in industry who do accept that we have a really vital role to play, as Matt says again, they've done a huge role in popularising distilleries that ordinarily would probably just be blending fodder. You can't, as you say, you can't understate that point enough.
I also like that question of what is an independent bottler by that respect, because it's that's a hard question.
It is a hard question.
I mean, if you work as an independent bottler and you work directly with a distillery and you're helping produce the new make, then you're buying the wood and you're maturing it from start to finish, versus someone who buys already matured spirit and blends it with other spirit and creates a delicious blend. They're both independent, but they're very, very, very different way of getting there.
I think it comes back to the kind of heart of the industry again to me, that it's a collaborative effort, without the distilling expertise of people like some of the big distilleries, and then people who become experts in wood management, and the bottlers say, actually, we're going to be a slight contrarian here and show this spirit for this particular quality that it doesn't normally get shown at. Everyone has a role to play in that process for me. And I think both sides of the equation, the indie bottler and the big distiller, they owe a debt of gratitude to each other, actually.
Yes.
Make no bones about it, that neither would happen without the other.
Yeah. Brilliant. And then finally, this event. I've been talking with a number of people. Nowadays, people say whiskey is starting to slow down, but then you come to an event like this, people haven't lost interest in whiskey. The excitement is palpable.
I don't believe in that statement at all, that it's slowing down. I mean, everyone says, there must be a bubble. I don't think there is. I think the industry is too diverse now for it to be that same bubble that we've seen before. Yeah, we'll see slowdown, but I think it's actually more of a post-COVID correction more than a slowdown.
Yes.
It's just it's going to come in waves. It's going to always be up and down. People would look back and say, 2012 was a bad year for whiskey, and it kind of was. You go, okay, but then 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18 were great. 19 was great. 20 to 23 was, 20 to 22 was fantastic. Okay, it was probably peaked a little bit too hard. Maybe we'll see a slight correction, and then we'll be back on course again. I don't see it anyway.
I think there's also a really big education piece that has to. It's like any sales or marketing. You can't step off the treadmill. It has to keep going. And if we try and not do things like this, and we don't introduce the next generations of prospective drinkers to this brilliant category we all know and love, then it could die a death in this particular niche of the sector. But the education piece for me is critical, and the distillers need to take that just as seriously and commit funds to it as the smallest independent bottle. There has to be that impetus there.
For sure.
Perfect.
Yeah. Cheers. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you.
A few moments later.
So, Jenny Carlson, I don't know if you know this. You have been one of my biggest whiskey heroes since forever. Seriously, when I first started with whiskey blogging, you were with Springbank at the time.
Yeah.
And there were all these people who just were whiskey rock stars, are whiskey rock stars. And I've always looked up to you as a person in whiskey who is just kicking ass and being such a great face for whiskey. So I want to thank you for being just...
You're making me blush. Honestly, I've just been very lucky with where I've been working and who I've been working with. Remember Springbank days, 2009, 10, 11. I was with Frank McCarthy, for goodness sake.
Yeah.
Those are legends in their own rights, and I find myself, I've just been very lucky on it. It's just that. I've been lucky working with the right people in the right places, and I've loved every bit of it.
Well,
20 years now.
Yeah. Say that once again?
20 years I've been in industry.
20 years.
Yeah. I started off in a shop, in the whiskey shop on Victoria Street in Edinburgh, and I've done everything from whiskey education to sales to now marketing communications. Yeah.
And you were at Harriet Watt School for Brewing and Distilling.
I studied at Harriet Watt. While I was there, I was working in a whiskey shop. Yeah.
Okay.
And then my first job out of it wasn't out of uni. It was my first job out of uni. It was with Springbank.
Okay.
Peter Kerr interviewed me in Glasgow, and I got the job.
It's amazing.
I know. It was great. Honestly, it was. Because I didn't really know. When I went to uni, I was 30. I was a mature student.
Okay.
So I already had a career and I worked in travel.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and I just didn't know what I wanted to do with my life. This is quite an unusual situation to be in at the age of 30. But I found this degree and I studied, and I've never regretted going back. I've never regretted being a mature student.
Yeah.
And then I think you have a different type of confidence when you're older and you learn in a different way. And that was really helpful. And then obviously I speak French, I speak Swedish, I speak a little bit of French. I speak Swedish. So that helped with sales. So when I got my job at Springbank, it was my languages and combined with my whiskey passion.
Got it. Yeah.
And then since then I've just,
So I want to, let's come over here. I want to talk about Adelphi, obviously, because here we are, Independent Spirits Festival, Independent Spirits series. But when you were at Springbank, did Springbank own Cadenheads at that time?
Yeah, absolutely. So that's another fun part of so Cadenhead was run separately. We had the shops across Europe, but there was a shop in Edinburgh, there was a shop in Campbelltown, and there's a shop in London. And in the Springbank sales team, we did all the stock takes and we helped with cask selection because the stock came from a joint selection. And I've spent a lot of time counting Cadenhead bottles in my past. And every now and again, my Facebook reminds me, 20 years ago, the type of whiskey we were just selling for like £30, £50. Out of this world stuff. And I love that. I think the independent bottling is kind of, I'm so happy about today. I've had a blast.
Yes.
First of all, every stand has something unique. All of the bottles here are unique. They're from single casks. And it's just been a real eye-opener. Why have we not done an independent bottler festival before? I don't know. It's not happening.
I don't think, there have been others, but I don't know to this level.
I don't think so.
This is really stunning.
I know there was something on Isla during the Fish, and that's nice, but this has been, I hope they continue. So when I was working with the J&A Mitchell group, I got to see what Cadenhead had to offer. Yeah. And that was a real school of whiskey for me. That's kind of where I learned about other distilleries. I learned about bottling strengths. I learned about what works in what wood. And it was really interesting. It was amazing.
So, quick question for you. So we only got a couple more minutes. We're starting to close up here. I think Cadenheads is a very, let me say it this way. In going around talking to people about independent bottlers, a common theme has been they love that each independent bottler has a different perspective.
100%.
Right? And so as someone who's worked with Cadenheads previously and now with Adelphi, what's the different perspective from Cadenheads to Adelphi?
The one thing, Alex and the team at Adelphi, we will not put in bottles something that we don't like ourselves. We wouldn't have bought anything that we wouldn't drink ourselves. It has to pass our taste buds. And the same goes for Cadenheads. They're very similar. They only bottle things that they are passionate about. They have whiskey in storage. The J&A Mitchell Foundation, they have so much whiskey. They have casks, thousands of casks.
Yeah.
We don't. So we source our whiskey as a team and buy parcels, and Alex and Connell are very busy sourcing whiskey. And then we're part of selecting that. Whereas before, at Cadenheads, the whiskey already exists, and I'm not part of the buying process.
So you were just managing stock for a long time. A different proposition.
You can choose what bottle, you try what gets bottled. But here, I am actually actively going to distilleries. Yeah. Could you send me a parcel? Could you send me some samples? I love going back home to Sweden, where I get to go to High Coast and Smöge and find out. I can't name all the distilleries, but recently have been sent a really nice parcel from a nice island distillery that I helped find. So I think that part of it is new to me. Being there to source the whiskey, and we buy and then we'll bottle it. Like it passes our taste test, and then we'll bottle it.
Yeah. My final question for you is, what was your big takeaway from the series? As someone who's been in the industry, what's your takeaway from the series, either for yourself or for the whiskey consumer?
I think, so I've been in the industry for 20 years. I didn't learn from it because I knew.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But people will learn from it. I thought it was it's a very, and there's so many things. I want to use the word endearing, but it's maybe a little bit patronizing. I don't mean it like that. But it's endearing to see how well we all work together, be cooperative. I don't think a lot of businesses or industries are like that we work together so well. I love seeing Alex. I think he's amazing on camera. I'm so proud. He was brilliant. I also think having so many different companies and spoken to them all, and experts and whiskey writers as well, and everybody having their take on independent bottling. I absolutely loved it. Yes, I did learn a couple of new things actually, but it was a great show. I just want to roll it out now for all the whiskey clubs in Sweden. I just think they should all watch it, download it and watch it, because it's a proper thing to do. You get a couple of friends together, get some drams and enjoy a couple of episodes, and you will enjoy it. It's a great series. I love that one.
Really? Thank you so much.
No, thank you. Lovely to see you in 3D.
Likewise. Oh my gosh.
Meanwhile, at the Legion of Doom.
Not now.
Okay.
How do you pronounce your last name?
Berendt.
All right.
It's not French, it's German.
All right. I like that specification.
Yeah.
You're like, fuck the French.
People say Berendt. No, that's a little...
Or do they say Berendt?
But I think you need the at the end to introduce the French and the Italian, right?
So, I'm here with Paul Barrett, and we're in Leith. We're in Scotland. We're at the Independent Spirits festival that is really a celebration of the Independent Spirits series.
Absolutely.
Which you not only watched, but you are in. I love seeing your face.
I did have a little bit of cameo, and I will have to admit, the dram that I took for the film was a little larger than I normally take, so I must have been quite enthusiastic.
So tell me about your perspective of the movie as a whiskey fan, as someone who really follows independent bottlings. What were your thoughts on it?
I mean, I absolutely loved it. It's so great to see the story of independent bottlers and how things have evolved over time. I actually was relatively new to the more formal whiskey world, relatively 2017 or so.
Yeah.
And so getting some of the history that I wasn't there to experience was very appreciated.
Okay.
And I've kind of seen all the evolution since then, and there's been an explosion of independent bottlers and great releases. But I've never really seen some of the legends that have kind of been told to me by some of my best whiskey friends.
Yeah. So here we are at a festival celebrating independent bottlers.
Yeah.
I mean, me as just someone who's part of an independent bottling company, I never thought I'd see something like this and something that's as packed like this.
Yeah.
As an American, do you think that us in America would have this outturn like we have here in Scotland?
I hope that we would see something like that. I think that we are really, in many ways, a niche of a niche of a niche.
Yeah.
Right? And so there is a little bit of a difficulty with that. But I do think those of us that, A, love whiskey, and B, love diversity and interesting things, we seek out things like this. And I do hope that in major markets we would see turnouts approaching this.
Yeah. And just really quickly, back to the show. Was there anything in watching the series that surprised you about independent bottling that you said, oh, I didn't know that?
Maybe not surprised per se, but the connection between maybe quote-unquote proper distilleries and independent bottlers, and how even now the lines are so blurred, maybe even more especially now, is very interesting.
Okay.
Because independent bottlers and what they offer us in terms of variety and uniqueness somewhat, right? But also picking apart the underlying character of a distillery.
Yeah.
I think to see that play out as some of the most intense whiskey aficionados start doing the craft themselves, I have hope that continues to drive the industry and distilleries and like availability of very interesting malts forward.
And then my final question for you. What got you into independent bottlings? Like, what was that on? Because everybody has like this whiskey story, right? For me, Lagavulin 16, that's what pulled me in. But like you mentioned it before, independent bottlings, it's a niche within a niche within a niche. And we can probably add a few other fucking niches in there as well. So like, what's that?
Well, I think so. And this might sound weird, and it might sound dichotomous in a way, but.
Someone made a dictionary today. Well done.
Well, word of the day is great. I wish I kept up with that a little bit more. But I've got at least 2 or 3, right? But I think for me, and we in Chicago, we have great access to a lot of good retail space, right? But also great independent bottlers and a retail space that supports independent bottlers. But some of the IB bottlings, like, an initial release is great, you have something interesting, and then it's very similar over time.
Yeah.
Right? And consistency is important to them. Yeah. And honestly, both here and in craft brewing, sometimes we don't appreciate consistency as much as we should. Right? We should go back and buy the things that we love, not just the things that we find interesting. Yeah. But at a certain point, you want to explore the interesting. And what I love about independent bottlers is that you can go deep into the deep essence of the distillery itself. Yeah. Like, if you think about various bottles of Kalila and ex-bourbon that you may be familiar with, some of those are like so close to the distillery character in a way that not even the blended, original bottler can kind of do or does do. That's intriguing. And then the opposite side is like, a super sherry version of something that's, a little over the top to be an individual release from an OB. Maybe, you get a lot of it in a blend. But that dichotomy of both the core of something and also how it can be expressive in different ways.
So let me ask my question again, because I don't know if I was clear. What was that introduction to independent bottlers? Like, you and I first met at Delilah's. Yeah. Was it Mike Miller? Was it Brett at Binny's? Was it Gene? Was it a friend? Like, who first said, you got to try this?
That's a really hard question to answer because they all kind of happen at the same time as you're going through your experience.
Yeah.
But definitely, seeing the long list at Delilah's in Chicago, and then just exploring what else is on the shelf at Binny's with Brett and crew.
But you braved it. You took a chance.
And I think the enthusiasm of others and the recommendations, that's key. Yeah. I think that curation might be the new theme in the whiskey world, as there's potentially a lot of whiskey for us to drink. And it's a golden age in terms of availability, but it's hard to find exactly what you want to drink sometimes or where to expand from there without other people's perspective and opinions. Because it's so diverse, you don't know it until you try it, but there's a lot of things to try.
Isn't that great? And even if you try like an absolute stinker, it's like, that's an experience.
Yeah. Well, I think you learn something from absolute stinkers. Maybe it's to avoid it, but it's also like what can happen when things go wrong.
Exactly.
And an appreciation for when things go really, really right.
Exactly. And I have some bottles on my shelf that are like one of the worst whiskeys I've ever had. I need a bottle. So I can show people what a bad whiskey is. So
now you're talking to somebody from Chicago, and we have a particular non-whiskey product that's quite like that. But
so delicious. It's called Malort. Everybody go out, clear the shelves.
And I can't believe I'm talking about Malort now, but I have a type, I guess,
Paul, thank you so much. Really appreciate it.
Thank you. It's been a lovely time.
209 into ground control. We're loaded and ready to taxi.
Flight 209er, you are cleared for takeoff.
Roger.
Huh? LA departure frequency 123.9er.
Roger.
Huh?
Request vector. Over. What?
Flight 209er, clear for vector 324.
We have clearance, Clarence. Roger, Roger. What's our vector, Victor?
Tower radio clearance, over.
That's Clarence, over. Over.
Roger. Huh? Roger, over.
Pablo Goldberg. Lovely to see you here in Scotland. Normally I see you in Massachusetts at Norfolk Wine and Spirits or wherever. You and I have known each other for 10 years, 12 years, something like this. And when I first met you, you were a punter. You were a whiskey fan. And then I remember you talking, saying, I'm really interested in starting an independent bottling company. And I think my advice was, don't fucking do it.
You know, it's not what you think it is. It was like all the glamour that you see. There's a lot of background work, and it's gonna be complex. And I remember you told me I wanted to take as much information as possible from you. And I have the beginning of what it was like an Excel spreadsheet.
Okay.
And the number that you gave me was something like, don't buy a cask for more than $1,000. Yeah. And the first cask that I found years later was close to $1,000, and I still bought it. So
you did not heed my advice, sir.
I took a lot of your advices except that one. But yes, a lot of work and a lot of time has passed.
And so here you are now as an independent bottler, and so tell the listener the name and what you focus on. What's your point of view as an independent bottler?
The bottler is called Catador Itinerante, that in Spanish means itinerant taster.
Thank you.
Which would be something like going around the world trying whiskey.
Yeah.
And one of the reasons the most obvious reason why I didn't want to bottle Scotch is because there's too many good bottlers, and bottlers sitting in very special old casks that I would never have access to. And I'm like, if I want to do something different, something special, it has to be really something I've never done before. And though some of the bottlers in the last few years, they bottle some world whiskey, like for example, you guys did McMeer up in Daring. I'm like, what if I do only world whiskey? And what is world whiskey for me? My own definition of world whiskey is Scotland is a planet, and planet Earth is another planet that has whiskey. So I'm gonna bottle from this planet.
So what about America?
America is part of this planet.
Okay.
So I would be open to bottle an American single malt.
Okay.
But I like to discover whiskeys. In an ideal world, I travel all around the world. It would be financially not possible. So some distillery will send me samples home in Boston, in Cambridge actually. But I believe that the world has some distilleries that are really incredible. A lot of distilleries that they jump in the wagon of let's have a whiskey distillery. So one of the things I also remember early on, and advice from Nick Taylor actually, Found North also helped me a lot with in the beginning. I picked their brain, and it was like I'm pretty sure you may find some hidden gems, but you're gonna find a lot of stuff that you're not gonna want to bottle. So yes, it's gonna be a lot of hit and miss. And then the next step is, once I bottle something I like, will the consumer in the US appreciate it? Or will automatically compare it to Scotland? Will automatically say, if I had to spend this money in a 10-year-old Austrian, why not spending it in the 15-year-old Scotch?
Yeah. And so what are you finding? Are you finding pushback, or are you finding people intrigued and interested to?
I don't know if I'm an expert or if I'm lucky, or if the people are starting to open their minds to explore new flavors. I mean, the other day I was presenting a tasting in Barcelona in La Whiskeria, which is an incredible bar with more than 1,000 whiskeys.
Oh wow! Okay.
And the guys told me, if you were here 2 weeks earlier, there was a big technology expo, and all these technology guys came to the bar to tell me, give me something I never tried before.
Yeah.
So they said, you will have sold all your bottles. And what I found in the beginning was this very tiny distillery in Austria called Brogger. That is a family-owned business. That their output is 1,000 liters a year.
That is tiny.
Ultra tiny. And actually, when I visited them in 2022, they told me, please come at night, because during the day we work, we have other jobs. So I'm there one night trying crazy wild whiskey. And I actually loved one of their casks, that it was a Madeira cask. And I ended up bottling a 13-year-old Madeira and a 10-year-old Oloroso with a barley smoke with beech wood.
Okay.
And that one I was very scared, because I said, it's going to be polarizing. People are used to delicious peat whiskey. And wood whiskey, it's something that I don't know how I'm going to do. And surprisingly, I mean, it's also 71.6 ABV.
That's the one I bought.
So some people are buying it with closed eyes because of the alcohol. Other people are loving that beech wood smoke. Translated into, for some people, mesquite barbecue. For other people, chocolate notes.
And that's what I got. And so I mentioned to Gene Sharness of Warehouse Liquors in Chicago. And actually, he and I did a tasting together. And I was pouring some single cask nation whiskey. And it was, I don't know, high 50s, low 60s. And I had said, it doesn't drink like that, because it was really rich and unctuous. And he came back and he said, I think it does drink like whatever it was. And he said, not because of the heat, but because of the flavor that it delivers because of the high ABV. And that's the experience that I had with that particular whiskey, is it's delivering so much flavor. And the texture on that whiskey with the beechwood, 71.9%, was just off the charts. You'd never know it was 71.9, but it was just like glorious in the mouth, like just really lovely whiskey.
And one interesting fact about them is that they like distilling very complex flavors. They want to go bold, whatever the still gives them and whatever the fermentation gives them, they are happy to take. They feel proud and and I'm choosing that word because we believe that many countries where their people started distillery, they are like, we're gonna show the world that we can be probably as good as Scotland or similar, but in our country. And it's not what I found. What I found is people that are very proud about their approach to distilling. This Brogger family had generations of distilling other type of spirits,
brandies,
like schnapps or fruit. When they started whiskey in 2008, they wanted to use their techniques. They wanted to show their Austrian pride. And one of the things they like is that it's bold and complex. And when I asked them, how can you I bottled a 9-year-old Madeira finish, so it's 13 years, but 9 of them in Madeira. And I asked them why. Why didn't you bottle it before? Because I never seen such a long finish. And they were like, because it kept on getting better. So they like it, they are not rushed. And that's how they like to bottle. Now, when I bottled the next 2 editions, they were from Germany.
Okay.
From Schliers.
Schliers, yeah.
It's a best-selling whiskey in Germany. They like to distill very clean.
Mm-hmm.
They like all these fragrant flavors and these floral notes.
It's much cleaner and floral, yeah, for sure.
They like that to come. They ferment with cooling climate
like a cooling
system.
jacket.
So it's very the climate is controlled.
Okay.
So in that way, they know always their new make is the same.
Yeah.
And then the cask kind of speaks for itself. And that's what happened with my Sauterne.
Yeah.
My Sauterne cask from Schliers.
Yes.
The perfume is almost like sandalwood cologne that I would put in my wrist.
Yeah.
But in the flavor, and you mentioned this, it was at the limit of becoming too tannic.
Yes. Yep.
Because the Sauterne was taking over. Mm-hmm. Which you can at least solve it in this 7-year-old with a few drops of water.
Yeah.
But the reason I bottled them is because they're much more subtle than the Austrian guys.
Yes.
So people can start taking experience in my collection, like, they are surfing a wave.
Yeah.
Will be high and low, and you're gonna go from complex to very delicate, and probably the next one is complex.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna tell you anything about the next 2 editions,
okay,
but maybe they are from a very beautiful established distillery somewhere
go on.
in the Netherlands. I didn't say anything else.
All right.
But it could be that. Okay. It could be those crazy guys from Finland running naked.
Oh, yeah, the Kiro guys.
But whatever comes next is going to be, hopefully, different to the previous one.
Yeah.
And for me, as I said before in another interview, it's a window to the world through whiskey. Yeah. This doesn't speak only about distillers. It speaks about their culture, their heritage. I'm an immigrant myself. My grandfather was an immigrant. And this is just a lot of things coming together through whiskey.
So I'm going to end with this. Thank you for joining the world of independent bottlers and for widening it. What you do helps to make the world of independent bottling just that much more special. Seriously, thank you. It's what you're doing is unlike what anybody else is, and it's great.
I have to thank you because of the inspiration. And again, I regret that I didn't follow all your advice, but I think that these type of things, like being right now in Edinburgh with you, saying thank you, or being part of the Independent Spirits movie that the guys did. That I yesterday I was telling him.
I was so surprised to see you. I didn't know that you were interviewed for the series, and then when you came on, the whole time I'm pointing, saying, I know him, I know her, she's a friend, he's a friend, and then there's your face. It was lovely seeing you on this.
Yeah, I mean, this is really telling me that I'm in the right path.
Yeah.
The other day I was in a tasting and someone told me, and I got almost tears in my eyes, because someone tried it and told me there is the easy way and there is the right way. You are doing the right thing. So it gives me hope that I have a long, long way to continue this. Mm-hmm. But I want to thank you for the inspiration, because you guys are one of the best independent bottlers in the world. And you're close home. So it's really amazing to be part of this world and to see what's next.
Cheers. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks so much to David Stirk for putting on this tremendous event. Of course, to Guy Satchwell, to Greg Schwartz, to the entire production team behind the Independent Spirits series for the years of effort in putting this series together, right? For including us and so many of our friends within the industry and in highlighting, this tiny, absolutely tiny segment of the whiskey industry, that we're so proud to be a part of.
Well, and that was one of the things I enjoyed the most. I'm curious to hear Jess's perspective, but it actually felt like on that Saturday with 30 of us in the room, coming off a 4-part independent bottler series, felt like we mattered. Like it was really kind of cool. And instead of so much of our time spent explaining to people what independent bottlers are, why they're important, it was nice to actually have people attend a festival to celebrate independent bottlers and independent bottling. And I was incredibly buoyed by the event. Jess?
Yeah, absolutely. I was gonna say that it was nice to see so many friends, but really, of the people who were also at tables, I was just kind of waving at them from our incredibly wide bar that we were behind. I tried my absolute hardest to make it so Joshua couldn't go and record any of these interviews, dear podcast listeners, because we were so busy that he kept saying, I'm going to go. And then 5 more people would arrive at the table. And I was quietly chuckling at that. So I really wish, and having heard about some of the whiskies that were hiding on these tables around the room, I really wish I'd had a chance to go round. I was joking as things were kicking off that maybe we should have had an hour beforehand just for industry to go drink each other's stuff and have a quick chit chat before the madness descended. Because it was one of the quickest shows I have ever worked at. We did not stop the entire time. So it's all a bit of a blur. So I guess my thanks is to anybody who came to say hi and try the whiskies, especially to those people who came and bought bottles from us. That's very kind. But honestly, for me, it was super fast. I didn't really take it in. I feel like you two have got a better perspective. I just kind of felt like I had my head down and I was working away. That was that's my official report back. Did you see some of the amazing whiskies that were in the room? Like Gordon MacPhail had a 1949 Glenlivet on free pour on the table. There was a 50-something-year-old from the Claxton Boys. They had some old grains on the go. Yeah, there was just some incredible, really old whiskies floating in the room, and obviously all the people from the brands that you want to talk to. So my appeal is for, should this festival happen again, which I 100% stand behind, and I will sign us up instantly to be at if the guys want to do this again, is for there to be a little kind of very selfish half an hour, 45-minute chit chat for industry people to all go and look at each other before we let the lovely punters in. I feel like I've missed out. This was a great festival. This is a festival that if we weren't working, I definitely would have gone to. So I feel like I've been cheated out of a festival. Yeah. This is a memo to David Sturck that I have missed out on a festival and I'd like you to do it again so that I can selfishly go and chat to everyone else in the industry that I don't get to chat to too often. So yeah, I think it was a huge success.
I'd heard it from Mark at What Whiskies and I'd heard it from Tom at Claxton's, where they were both of the mind an hour before, an hour after. Like, it would have been great just to get together as independent bottlers and just celebrate each other and taste what we had on each other's tables.
Absolutely.
It was, which again speaks to the celebratory nature of it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm curious, Joshua, for the man out there with the recording equipment wandering around, and we've just heard a sampling of it in our interviews today, but what was your takeaway? What was your tenor of the event as you were out and about?
It was a bit of a whirlwind for me, if I'm being very honest. Going out there, it was excitement, and I had a tough time finding people to talk to, because everybody was packed. It was really packed. People were at tables having great conversations with people at the tables and discussing whiskeys. And it wasn't very easy. Well, how long was the festival? Maybe 4 hours or so.
Yeah. Yep.
And I was out there for 3 hours, and I think I recorded an hour's worth of audio. So it gives you an idea of how difficult it was to actually capture, quality audio, like a good amount of audio, I should say. So I would say it was a damn good event, that's the hallmark of a good event. People caught up in excellent conversation over quality whiskey. And there was a wonderful comment from Michael Nolan where he said this was the best festival he had attended since Whiskey Jubilee. Right?
There's a man who knows.
Speaking of tremendous events, Joshua, we had you put a pin in our introduction about your recent travels. Do you want to give us your recent travels before we get out of here?
Yeah, well, I wanted to connect something. I wanted to connect my most recent travels to a comment that you both had just talked about, where Mark Watt where you had said and Mark Watt had just said, I wish there had been an opportunity for the exhibitors, for all of us to just get together and hang out. And I was at the Galaxy Gala down in Austin, Texas, which ended with an after party where all of the exhibitors brought a bottle down to a patio after the event, and everybody hung out with bottles just to be with one another and have free pours and hang out. And that was so wonderful to be able to do that. So getting down to this event was a really good time. It was with, of course, our importers, Impex. Sam Filmus was in the room, which was a lovely time. And I got to meet some old time. I shouldn't say old time. Some long time. That's a better way to put it. Some long time Nation members and Padcast listeners, right? Kelly Noakes, David Feldner, Ben Stahl, Jeff Mignon, I want to say his last name is, the cellist guy.
Absolutely.
You met him, right?
Absolutely. I've been listening to his music on iTunes.
All right. And, Jeepers Creepers. There are other names here, right? There's incomplete Joshua Hatton list.
Thank you. Fill that in your bingo card, dear listener.
Right. Hispanic name with the last name Prado.
Throwing words at a board now, okay. People with hair and shoulders.
People with hair, shoulders, glasses. But it was such a wonderful opportunity to just set a little time aside and talk whiskey and hang out with people who I had wanted to meet for a number of years. And talk whiskey and hang out with industry folks that I rarely get to see. Dan Kroll comes straight to mind. It's just sometimes you go to events and you say, oh, it's another event. It's going to be a slog. But when it's over, I get to go to my hotel room. I get to put my head on a pillow. But sometimes you go to an event and you say, I get to meet up with friends and I get to share a dram and it gets to be a night of camaraderie. And that's what it really felt like. And those are the days, those are the nights that you look forward to. And my time in Austin was much like our time at the Independent Spirits Festival. So
nice to get out there. That's what we've said all the time, right? This industry's great. We've got such friends in it, not necessarily competitors. We're buying each other's bottles. We're supporting each other along the way. Great space to be in.
Yep, for sure. It was lovely to be in Leith with the both of you. Just a quick hint to our listeners. We will have some other episodes coming up in the coming months. Jess, you and I were up at Tormore with Polly and Ollie. So we'll have some episodes there coming up. A secret episode from another visit up in Speyside. A couple other episodes there as well. I know, Jason, you had your own visits.
My time at the ACSA, the American Craft Spirits Association in Tucson, Arizona. Had some good interviews out there, including speaking to the new president of the board.
Jason, you know who I met? I met Caitlin at McCarthy's.
Oh, wonderful. Borrow me. She'll be in a future episode.
She was brilliant. So much fun. She asked about you. She was sad you didn't come, but we had a good time hanging out. And she says,
awesome.
Hello.
Well, we have both an interview with Caitlin coming up and a tasting of McCarthy's American Single Malt coming up. So that's good. I'm glad you now have met Caitlin along the way. Lots of exciting episodes coming up. If anybody's looking for me, I'll be in San Francisco for Fog City Social on April 26th. And there's a few events happening in San Francisco around that, but that's the big anchor event for me.
Last thing I want to say to our listeners is the next episode is going to be our industry news episode. And if you're on the Singlecast Nation Facebook, the private Facebook page, if you're a Nation member, you'll see a poll up there that will have a list of potential topics for us to be talking about, where you get to vote on the topic of discussion. So head on over there, place your vote on what you want us to be talking about, and your voice will be heard. We may or may not choose what you vote on, but at least you will have placed your vote. If you have any questions or anything like that, you can always email us, info@singlecastnation.com. And,
before we get out of here, Jess, I know you've got a road show coming up in Germany in early May. Do you have any travel before that?
I will be in Speyside attending the Spirit of Speyside Whiskey School, which is going to be very
nice.
Fun.
Making whiskey with Alan Winchester?
And a whole bunch of industry people. I'm very excited. So if there's anybody who's a podcast listener who's also going to be there, then hit me up. It'd be fun to have a buddy to go and do this with. So there's that, and then I have an actual German road show that we're going to do with Prinius that we can talk about on the next podcast.
Perfect.
There we go. All right. Well, cheers, listeners.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Really enjoyed your whiskeys tonight, and really nice to meet you. Continue in a great podcast.
Thank you. Cheers. Thank you so much.
Before you legends leave, I just wanted to say goodbye. This is like, can we get a picture of all the legends?
All right. Have a great trip here and have a safe journey back.
Legend picture.
Oh.
You guys are like amazing. Oh, here. Yeah.
What are we doing? What are we doing? I don't know what we're doing.
Holy crap.
Oh, let me hold on. There. I have my ghost detector that was in the camera.
Are you doing podcast work right now?
I am. I've been recording your conversation.
We're all on
where can we drink?
Right, I better go and help Jess. One more question.
Okay, yeah. What was my question for you?
I don't think.
Something insightful and deep.
It was something insightful. It was deep.